Today, as you can see, I will be talking about custom figure painting. Custom figure painting is a hobby of mine and I've been into it for a few years. I'd like to share what it is today and how you too can get into it. So, custom figure painting is basically taking a toy, a pre-existing toy, and painting it how you'd like it to look. Here you can see this particular stormtrooper that I worked on. I found at a cheap store locally and then repainted it in this tank style. Now most figure painters will follow a similar process and I want to show you one of those processes today. We place the figure, as you can see on the left there, on a base and then cover the figure in primer. This creates a really nice base for you to paint on top of. Some people have a preference for black. Black is great, especially if you're going to be doing something called dry brushing. Then all the little details that you see in between his belt, in his helmet, under his arm, etc. remain nice and black and do not need to be painted at a later stage. A good primer really helps in the later stages. Once it's all primed up, you can then choose a theme and then paint your figure. Here you can see I chose a tank theme. I thought it would be a fun option for this particular stormtrooper. I used acrylic paints and eventually finished it with a varnish. So that's generally how most custom figure repainters or custom figure painters will go about painting a figure. So if you want to get into figure painting, one of the places you will start is by collecting yourself a figure. Here you can see 3 options, but there are many more out there. On the left, a bootleg stormtrooper. These cost roughly about 50 South African rands locally here where I'm from, but overseas I've seen them for as cheap as $2.50. In the middle you can see an action figure also from a cheap toy store, and these usually come in packs of 5, so they're a really great starting point. Also, they have been molded really well, so their details are quite accurate. It's just the paint jobs that are not really good, but that's where your job comes in. On the right hand side you can see a McDonald's figure, and it's very easy to get these with Happy Meals, etc. Often you will even find these laying around sometimes, and they also make for great figures to pose, repaint, and even create dioramas where you create a scene, perhaps with multiple figures. Once you've got your figure, you're going to want a base to put it on. I like to use these plastic lids, but you could even use flat stones, pieces of flat plastic, etc. It's nice to use a bit of sandpaper to roughen up the surface of these plastic lids, etc., so that you have a better surface on which to stick your particular figure. I choose super glue, and I find that most cheap store super glues work just fine. No need for anything super expensive. The super glue is used once you've posed your figure to lock the joints in place. So you can see in the image here, I chose to make him walking forward. One arm forward, one leg forward, just to give it a bit of action. It would be a good idea to try and copy something you've seen online, perhaps on the cover of a comic book or from one of your favorite scenes. Action poses will work really well for these. Once you've stuck it onto the base securely, you can then cover it in primer, as I mentioned before. I'm a fan of the Rust-Oleum range, but most any primer will work fine. These are mostly for display, so the figures won't be handled too much, and as such the paint won't be likely to peel. Once you have your base down, and I really like how they look even just with the little bit of primer on them, you can move on to painting them. I prefer acrylic paints personally, and in particular I like the System 3 acrylics by Daler-Rowney. They have high saturation, which means they have a lot of color mixed in them, and they create really dynamic colors. They can also be watered down if you want to create what we call a wash. but I will chat about different painting techniques later. Obviously, you'll need a range of brushes, and most figures are quite small, so medium and smaller brushes will work great. Once you've got your paints, you'll want to think of a theme, and this is one of the most important parts because you don't want to just start painting the figure. Perhaps if you're repairing a figure that had a bad paint job and you want to make it look better, like that little G.I. Joe looking figure in the middle there, then you can copy a pre-existing one. But sometimes it's really good to go with a theme. Here you can see a transformer that was repainted by McToy Reviewer. I found this image on Twitter. Thank you to McToy Reviewer for this particular image. And here you can see the theme is obviously battle damage. And this particular painter and creator has decided to take the standard transformer and give him a battle damaged look. This is quite a popular theme that people use. In my case, remember I chose a tank theme. I thought it would be something really different, something I hadn't seen anywhere else, so I applied it to the Stormtrooper. So that's the basic process that one can follow when creating these particular figures. And I will create specific videos as we go along and show you more examples of what I've created in the past as well. So keep an eye on my page. If you want to get into custom repaints or perhaps just watch some more content related to it, it's worthwhile to go on Instagram or YouTube. I'm sure Twitter and Google will provide similar results. And just search for these words: custom painted figures, cheap figure repaint, scratch build, which is its own thing but very similar, kit bashing as well, where we take pre-existing figure kits and vehicle kits and mix them together to create custom builds, and then miniature figure painting, which is related to painting items such as Dungeons and Dragons and the Warhammer series. But you can learn a lot from those particular miniature figure painting tutorials and examples that are shown. So have a look at these and start your custom figure repaints or custom figure painting journey. At this point, I just want to say thanks for watching and keep an eye on the page for more content. Thank you.